What's going on, swim fans? Welcome back to Whiteboard Wednesday, and in today's video, I'm gonna share with you how to drop 1 full second in the 50-meter freestyle. And this video is going to apply to not just the 50-meter freestyle, but really any type of race that you're trying to drop time in. You can apply the same methodology step by step, and you can drop time in pretty much any event. Now we're gonna be using the 50-meter freestyle as a baseline, assuming a swimmer goes 25 seconds in the 50-meter freestyle. We're gonna use easy round numbers to break this down. Make sure you share this with a friend and watch the video until the very end, because I'm gonna share 5 practical tips how you can actually accomplish this in the 50 freestyle and how you can apply it to other racing events. Now, if you guys are new to MySwimPro, welcome to the family. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm Ferris Sabetti, and I help take your swimming to the next level. So if you want to swim faster and smarter than ever before, welcome to MySwimPro. Like, subscribe, and share this video. Let's get right into it. Now, when we're thinking about the 50-meter freestyle, it's start, turn, finish. In the short course version, of course, it's over before you know it. So the thought of dropping a full second, if you're already racing fast and you've sort of plateaued, you don't really know how to do it. And so the thought of dropping 1 full second, and if you're going 25 seconds in a 50, that's a full 4% drop to go from 25 seconds to 24 seconds. I think some of the things we're about to talk about, you can drop way more time than that, especially if you're not moving 25 seconds. Let's say it takes you 50 seconds. I think we can drop maybe up to 5 seconds off your best time if you follow all these things. But let's stick with the 4%. 1 full second seems like a lot. And if you think about it over the course of a full 50, that is really a lot of time, right? You've got to drop a full second. But let's break it down a little bit. So instead of thinking about this as a 50 freestyle, my beautiful pool illustration here, let's pretend this is short course and we've really got 2:25. So instead of thinking about how do I drop 1 full second across a 50, now for each segment, we're gonna think about dropping half a second, 0.50 per segment of the race that we're talking about. Well, what if we break it down further? I did mention that a 50 freestyle is start, turn, finish. So if we break it into thirds, now we're talking about, 16.6 repeating meters. And for each of those segments, what we're really talking about is dropping 1/3 of a second, or 0.33. If we break it down further, we have 4:12.5. So we've got a 25-meter pool. We're gonna slice it down the middle, and we've got 4 quadrants. And for each of those quadrants to drop 1 second, we have to find a way to improve 0.25 across each of those different segments. Now, actually, for the 50 freestyle, the way I want to break it down is even more than that. I want to break it into 10 5-meter segments. So when you break it down like that, 10 5-meter segments, you're only dropping 0.1 seconds for each of those. And when you break it down to that level, and you've got 5 segments of 5 meters across each of the 25s, I mean, think about it. The start is the first 5. Maybe you can drop 0.1 in there. Then you have the streamline and the underwater breakout, and that takes you for the second and third segments of 5 meters. Then you have the breakout and the overwater swim heading into the wall. That right there is 5 full segments of 5 meters. And for each of those, you only have to drop 0.10 seconds. I think there's a lot of room to drop when you break it apart and you train specifically focusing on each of those different segments. And I believe this can apply to swimmers at any level. Now, of course, at the elite level, if you're someone like Caleb Dressel and you're already moving 20 seconds in the 50, it's going to be much more difficult to drop 0.1 in each of these segments, but most likely, shout out to Caleb if he's watching, you're probably not him, so you definitely have the opportunity to drop 0.1 for each of these segments. Now let's talk about how we do that. Now that we've got ourselves in the right mindset of, okay, we only need to drop 0.1 seconds per segment, let's talk about each of the different segments in this race. So the first segment is the start. Now it's super important to understand that the start is the fastest segment of the race. Of all of these 10 segments, you will never go faster than when you're flying through the air, or even if you don't even dive in. If you just push off the wall, that will be the fastest segment by far. It's not even close. So knowing that, you want to be able to leverage that and maintain as much speed as possible into the actual race itself. So when we think about what is composed in this segment from the time the gun goes off, we've got reaction time. Maybe you can drop 0.1 seconds just by improving your reaction time off the block. A lot of swimmers are maybe 0.7, 0.8. You might be able to drop 0.1 just by going off the block faster. Most likely, it's going to come from improving your reaction time and carrying more speed into the entry and entering the water with a slightly tighter streamline, making sure you reduce the amount of splash that you make when you enter the water, and then carrying that momentum into the rest of the race. Your body is moving the fastest at this point, regardless if it's a 50, 100, or even the mile. You actually get the most deceleration the longer the race is. So in the mile, you have a more dramatic drop in speed throughout the race across each of these segments. In the 50 freestyle, you're able to maintain that better than any other race. Even then, you still need to focus on maintaining that speed. So how do we get faster? You can improve reaction time, increase your entry efficiency by making less splash into the water. And once you make that splash into the water, it becomes segment 2. Now we're trying to keep the speed as much as possible in the underwater phase. And this can be done in training. When you push off the wall in streamline, you don't even have to do racing starts. Every time you push off the wall, it's focusing on carrying that speed in the underwater dolphin kick and then into the breakout, and not really going up or down to the side or anything like that. You're carrying your speed forward. Remember, you're trying to get to the other end of the pool. So in segment 2, 3, and 4, you're carrying that speed in the underwater phase and then into the breakout so that you can leverage as much speed as possible. Now, the second phase, if we broke it up into 3 sections, when we think about start, turn, finish, now we're talking about the turn. And I want you guys to think about this beautiful physics concept, and you can really visualize this if you take a tennis ball or any kind of ball and you throw it against the wall. If you throw the ball at the wall nice and light, it's going to come back at you at about the same speed you threw it. Now, if you chuck that ball at the wall as quickly as you can and you throw it as hard as you can, it's going to bounce off the wall just as fast. And so this concept applies in the water when you're doing a turn as well. So when we think about this last segment here, even more important than how fast you're actually rotating on the actual flip turn, it's carrying speed into the wall. A lot of people slow down when they get underneath the flags and you go slower into the wall. It should be the opposite. You got to accelerate. And in training, you have to practice this in the pool. So speed into the turn is directly relational to your speed coming out of the turn. And the way you can improve that is by doing this in workout, in practice, focusing on not getting lazy on the speed into the wall, on the actual rotation. And this should be much easier to drop 0.1 seconds across that segment, and then even coming off of the wall. So that's sort of like a 0.2 because it's a 10-meter segment, 0.2 to drop, and that's how you can drop a full second in the 50 when you add it all together. Now, when you come off the wall, we're really focusing on that underwater dolphin kick, making it, if you can go to 15 meters, great. Most likely, you're gonna be a little shorter than that. You're gonna be only between 5 and 10 meters, most likely. And so for that second and third segment, just like on the way down, it's about maintaining speed. And at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about how you can actually do this from a training perspective and how you can actually apply it to swim faster. And so in the finish, the goal is to decrease your deceleration. So this whole last part of the race, whether it's a long course or short course, you're getting slower and slower and slower. But you don't want to do that. You want to maintain your speed. Now let's talk about how you maintain your speed over the course of the race. Because for me personally, in the 50 freestyle, this is a killer for me. I've got a rockin' first 25. I hit the turn and I just fall apart on the second 25. Here are some things that I've done to help me take my second 25 to the next level and what you can incorporate as well. It comes down to 2 things. There's more, but 2 main things. One of them is breathing. Having a breath control pattern is so important. You can't go into the 50 free and just expect it to work out for you and not know how many breaths you're going to take, if you're going to take any breaths, and when you're going to take them. You should know exactly where you're going to take your breaths. And these last 2 things we talk about will help take time off of every single segment of the race. So if you've already taken a full second off your race, great. If not, this is where you're going to be able to finish the job and take that full second off, having a breathing pattern and having great breath control. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, how do I improve my breath control so I can feel more confident in the water and so that I can do the 50 free in less breaths and just feel more powerful swimming with the oxygen that you have in your lungs? And I want to quickly introduce today's video sponsor, AeroFit. The AeroFit breathing trainer helps you improve your breath efficiency, anaerobic threshold, and vital lung capacity, which will give you the edge that you need to get faster in the 50 freestyle or really any swimming event or race that you're trying to improve in. You'll start with a guided vital lung capacity test in the AeroFit Sport app, and then you'll begin a swimming-specific training program that takes only 5 to 10 minutes per day. After just 4 weeks of training with AeroFit, I increased my vital lung capacity by over 25%. It's super easy to use. The app gives me real-time feedback and tracks my progress over time, and it really feels like a video game using your breath control, which is pretty darn cool. Head over to the link in the description to get 10% off an AeroFit breathing trainer. Now, this is just for the MySwimPro community. It's absolutely awesome, and I know that you guys are gonna love this and incorporate it into your training to take your swimming to the next level. Thanks again to AeroFit for sponsoring this video. And like I said, having awesome breath control is so important if you're trying to do well, not just in the 50, but in the 100, in the 100 backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly. Literally any event in swimming comes down to having good breath control. And if you're not training it regularly, you're really not gonna get there. So if you're trying to knock off, that 0.1, 0.2, 0.5 off of your race, definitely focusing on your breath control is huge. Now, another thing that you need to focus on is your tempo. And this is something that's really challenging if you come from a non-competitive swimming background, or if you come from a background that's not really as focused on high intensity training. So if you're just swimming back and forth, it's gonna be really hard to increase your tempo. It's like asking someone who never runs to go and run as fast as they can to the end of the block. Most likely the person who trains in running is gonna be able to run faster because they've trained their body at higher speeds. In the pool, it's the exact same thing. So it's really important to be able to increase your stroke cycle and maintain your distance per stroke. Now, what that really means is being able to have a long and strong stroke, but increasing the amount of speed that your arms are moving. What often happens is you move your arms faster and then you start to slip. You're not grabbing as much water. So you'll move your arms faster, but that'll come at the expense of actually pulling any water. So the best swimmers in the world, if you watch them, they're moving so fast and they're able to grab a lot of water on every single stroke cycle while maintaining a very, very high tempo. That cadence is very, very fast. So it's really important that in your training, you try to mimic this. You try and swim at or above race pace. You can do this by doing shorter distances in interval training, and you can do something called USRPT, ultra short race pace training, basically doing like 25s and 50s where you actually swim at your goal race pace. You can also use fins, you can use paddles, you can do resistance training to build up strength, but basically anything that you can do to simulate that race pace tempo or even above race pace tempo. And here's a bonus tip for you guys. Make sure you follow a plan that builds progression. The MySwimPro app, available for iOS and Android, has a USRPT training program. So if you guys want to see how a program is actually structured and follow it, where you go from a certain speed and distance in an event and actually follow the progression of doing 25s and 50s to get faster systematically in a progression, that's what it's gonna take to drop that full second. And like I said, a full second at 25 seconds is about 4%. That sounds like a lot, but it's definitely doable. And if you're moving a little bit slower than that, and maybe it takes you 1 minute to do a 50 freestyle, I definitely think you can drop several seconds off of your 50 freestyle or really any other stroke if you apply this type of methodology. So if you guys like this breakdown, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also pick up my book. I basically dropped all my knowledge about swimming inside of a book called Swim Like a Pro. It's available on Amazon. Check it out. It's 16 chapters, 4 sections, training in the pool, out of the water. Make sure you check it out. And finally, make sure you join me in the MySwimPro Facebook group. 100% free to join. It's a VIP group down below in the description. You'll join over 10,000 swimmers from all over the world who are trying to take their swimming to the next level. So if you want to swim faster, if you want to drop 1 second, 5 seconds, or 0.1 second in whatever race that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's in the pool or open water, I look forward to seeing you in there. I wish you guys the very best. I'll see you at the next video, and happy swimming.